Welcome to the African News Review podcast, where we cut through the noise and get to the truth. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and each week we are here to challenge the biases, prejudices, and misinformation in the Western press about Africa. Using historical context and contemporary insights, we set the record straight and reclaim the narrative. Tune in every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we uncover the real stories and reshape the conversations about Africa. This is the African News Review podcast, reclaiming Africa's narrative, one story at a time. Yes, greetings, and welcome to another episode of African News Review. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and with me, as usual, my two esteemed panelists. I have with me, Fubara Eneli Esquire, author Yourself Revolution, Kwanzaa as a Celebration Guide, host Rethinking Freedom, 98.5, Killing Texas, co-host Women and Resistance. Welcome, sister.
Thank you very much.
I also have our esteemed panelists back in house. Yes. All the way from Havana, Cuba. He is none other than Comrade Milton Allimadi. He doesn't even need any introduction. He's the author of Manufacturing Hate, host Black Star News, UBAI 99.5 FM New York. I must say I'm jealous the fact that he's been to
Asante Sana.
Cuba.
Asante. Thank you, comrades. Yes.
It's his pictures and commentary from Cuba just...
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
So that said, news from where you're at, in your case, it was international. So, comrade.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's good to be back. I managed to go to Havana, Cuba, as part of the delegation, 25 of us, several journalists, led by the Pan-African Unity Dialogue, Dr. Ron Daniels. He's the founder of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century. And there's a lot of the information, the articles we wrote are ibw21.org. So I strongly recommend that. So obviously we don't have enough time for me to give like a recap of the entire trip, but there's some things I want to say before we get into today's show.
Yeah.
The resilience of the Cuban people is just remarkable, I mean, obviously the hardship is there. You can see the hardship. People swarm you once they think you have, U.S. dollars. Somebody told me the exchange rate is now 1 to 500 of Cuban pesos. And it actually brings some of the more unfortunate reactions from some people on the streets. Like one guy told me that during Batista's era, it was on par, 1-to-1. So I said, yeah, but you're not saying you're looking for Batista's days, are you? He said, the way things are so bad right now, give me Batista's era. And that, of course, is the impact of this financial and economic squeeze that the U.S. is putting. And that's the kind of reaction that the U.S. is hoping to get so that eventually, there's chaos, social breakdown, and they use that as an excuse to intervene. But I'm not sure that is the pervasive feeling. Most of the people I spoke with on the streets told me that they look back to when Obama was president because the relations were beginning to thaw. One person told me that he was making 3 times more income than he's making today because of the opening. A lot more private businesses were able to be established, and more visitors, of course, tourists, because first of all, Havana is such a beautiful city.
We lost a comrade. He should be back. He was... while we're trying to get comrades back, what's the news from where you're at, sis?
Well, if I can, and he's coming back right now, I was going to say
Forget about the spectacular classic buildings, the monuments.
We lost you for a second.
Man, can you hear me? Yeah, but the trees and the flowers. Wow. Man, I hope that's not U.S. intelligence working against. You develop this profound love for plants, trees, but okay, so let me sum. Because we have a lot of important issues, flowers, everywhere. In fact, the way I would describe it, normally you build a city to deal with this world. Let me sum. I've written an article about my experience, and then you have trees and plants and flowers. But in this case, I think They found a pit, so you can see that on Black Star News as well, or you can just Google it. And it's just packed with trees and plants and flowers, and decided to put buildings here and there, And it's when doctors cry. Essentially, that's how I would describe the city. The people are highly educated. Asked the doctors, we met with 7 doctors in a conference room. The question was water and food in it. People walk for miles. People hitchhike. How do you doctors cope with treating? I mean, I imagine they still have some occasional access to the people in an environment where there are not enough drugs, the infizone, the recycling, and I don't even know how you do this. The mortality rate has doubled. The cancer survival rate has dropped, and also distilling.
I mean,
some
a quick
fuel
question in relation
by
to your trip would
20%.
be:
How do you address your own
I think
emotion? The
during our
escalated the use
conversation
of
on the radio
alternative energies.
on Tuesday,
So
you spoke to
and in attempting to answer that question, one doctor just started crying.
the president,
That the U.S. has been praying for 65 years.
He's been
And I think
recently
that's where
sanctioned as well now. So the question
because
is,
I think nobody had
the
ever
American
asked them
government
this kind of
actually
question
speaking
before.
to him, or
Who is the nation
just
plays
pressure,
the most important role? When people are educated, they can make connections, right? Even the doctor for the doctor. Then the doctor next to him started crying too. And then the person in my group who posed the question started crying too. I was looking around, I saw like at least 5 other people crying. And that sums what is going on in Cuba today. So please read the article. When doctors cry, just go to Google and put my name, Milton Allimadi. It will probably pop up. So I think I would like to stop at this point so we can have more time to deal with this spending issue. Unless there are 1 or 2 questions that either of you, comrade, want me to address.
Wow. Sister.
It's pressure. I think they're
Just
thinking
for those
obviously,
who would like to
to
hear
us who follow the news, it's obvious that they're
your
thinking of doing
viewpoint
the
on
Venezuela
what you
type
saw while you were there,
situation.
because we get a lot
You make
of
him toxic,
contradictory information
so it
about
means
Cuba.
you have a preference for
How
somebody else
are
to deal
the
with.
people surviving?
And
What
given that
impact
we know recently
are these
some
sanctions,
U.S.
which
I
I
think
consider a
generals
form
went to
of genocide,
Guantanamo,
having
met with
on the
Cubans.
people?
I think they also went to the CIA, director went and he met with the president. I think if we are reading it the way we read Venezuela, maybe they're thinking of doing the same template. Find somebody who they can, control, and then, get Raul Castro and the president, Colonel President Miguel Diaz-Canel, get them out of the way. And maybe that's what they're saying. This is our price to avoid a full-scale invasion. So that would be my speculation. It's tough. Yes. And I'm glad you actually put it that way, because that's what the president actually said, Diaz-Canel, that this amounts to genocide, because when you are depriving people of food, and one of them reminded me, he said there are 15,000 tons of rice in the harbors, in the ports
for a second?
in Havana, but they don't have the fuel to distribute the food.
Yeah, I
Let's
can
think
hear
about
you
that. Food sitting there,
okay,
but you can't distribute it. People are surviving by
News
walking.
from where I am, we have
so many
a
people with
runoff
backpacks.
mayoral
I imagine
election
they might
taking
have
place just down the street from me. So if you're listening and you are a Harker Heights resident, I'm not a resident of Harker Heights, but if I were, I'll be voting for Linda Nash and voting for change. Some of the news that I just want to keep us, keep at the front of our minds is what is going on with Ebola. And now we see where Rubio in the United States of America. Is that one of the stories we're going to cover today?
Yeah.
Okay, then I won't talk about it now.
It is.
But at any rate, really important that we are paying attention to what's going on and how we take steps to make ourselves healthier and make ourselves stronger. And what I was noticing as Comrade was speaking and he was talking about the educational levels in Cuba is you see the same thing in Iran, right? So these places where they've tried to strangle folk to death, where they become more resourceful and they understand the importance of education, of knowledge, to then be able to be more innovative in how you handle the resources that you have. So for the African diaspora, for African people here in the U.S., wherever we are, we've got to lean into knowledge. We not just degrees, but the degrees could be proof of knowledge, but not always. But we really need to get our young people and ourselves through our own examples where we're tapping into knowledge. And on last point I'm going to make in terms of stories, Zambia, shout out to Zambia, because I'm always looking for some positivity on the continent. 2021, they instituted free education from elementary through high school, but there wasn't the money and the resources behind it. And we're in June now, so last month they actually codified that it is a right for every child in Zambia to have free education. And they're putting some resources behind it. And these are the kind of changes we need, because if we talk about Africa being the youngest continent, you're having the largest number of young people, and we don't educate our young people, we're setting ourselves up for a different kind of slavery.
Yes, in Europe, so Europe first, then the UK. In Europe, there is what is now known as the Flamingo Revolution happening in Albania, Tirana, the capital city, where the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his wife, Ivanka Trump, have taken up the idea that they bought an island, effectively. I don't know how that happened, how it was allowed to go.
How do you buy protected land?
Okay,
have you heard that prime minister talk? Like, is he in his right mind?
Yeah.
Okay, please carry on.
Ed Rami. So they bought protected land, which technically should not happen, but did happen. That's one of the issues.
Oh, but you have to tell the whole story. We were on a yacht owned by the Rothschilds. and no, Ivanka tells the story. You guys can go Google this.
Yeah.
And just swimming on a beautiful, idyllic day.
And you saw this island.
And we saw this island, and it was so beautiful. And our colonizer in tendencies, the Urugu in us, says, we must colonize. And we hiked all the way to the top, and it was just gorgeous. And we said, God must have made this for us to own and kill everything that's on here, because that's in our DNA. It's what we do. And so we called the prime minister, and he showed up on the yacht. And forget that it is protected lands. But thank God the people are rising up. Brother, I'm sorry. I know you were trying to tell the story, but I just have to. Oh, my God. These Urugu. Woo!
For me, it wasn't the fact that they bought the island. It was the fact that I think they've technically gotten away with the island. It was the fact that they said they wanted the nature reserve to extend the island. People were like, what?
So that they can build a 10,000 condo, whatever, paradise beyond Epstein proportions of what they'll be doing there.
And the worst part
allegedly.
Yes. So the worst part is this. There is a old airport that has long been disused. Now they want to build a big runway that literally is in the part of a bird sanctuary. Birds and planes don't mix, but they want to build it.
We'll get rid of the birds.
Exactly. And that's the only place the flamingos land in the Mediterranean.
Who cares about the flamingos? We are Urugu. We conquer everything.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Just taking a quick break here on the African News Review podcast, but don't go anywhere. If you're enjoying our deep dive into the real stories behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're here to debunk the myths and bring you the truth about Africa. Want to help spread the word? Share this podcast with your friends and leave us a review. It goes a long way in helping others discover the real Africa. Without further ado, let's get back to setting the record straight. Yes, so that's on the European scene. On the local,
but the people are protesting, though.
Yeah, the people are in the streets. They've been in the streets now for the past 15 days. Today would make it day 16. And basically they are sitting outside the Prime Minister's office, and we'll see what comes of it. But with the people in the streets, this is not going to go down well. So That said, on the domestic front, Reform Party has been taking some sort of a beating. Beating, I mean the fact that some of the politicians they got elected during this recent local election have been found to be, how can I say, colorful characters, for want of a better word. People who have sexually assaulted their partners, people who are peeping toms. For people here, this is people who go through and are voyeuristic, staring into people's windows, all sorts of characters. So they've just been dropping like flies. Now they're coming to realize that it's okay to be loud in opposition. But then when you get into power and you're held to account, you're found to be wanting. And so that's just the nature of things here at the moment. And with that, I think the comrade is struggling to come back in. We'll continue. Let's start with the first story of this week, and that comes from The Guardian. It comes from The Guardian, and it is, Yep. And it is that the MPs in Jamaica are up in arms. They're up in arms.
Lord.
It is broken English. MPs attempt to speak Jamaican. Not speaking Jamaican, you speak Patois. Even the speak Patois in Parliament sparks a language row. Parliamentary rule that only English is allowed has reignited debate about language, legitimacy, and post-colonial identity. Nikisha Butcher, that's the lady here, who is a recent MP, but is also MP for the opposition's cultural arm. When Jamaican's MP Nikisha Butcher stood up to give her maiden speech, she was keenly aware of how much her country's parliament mirrored the Westminster version thousands of miles away in good old London. As in the UK, the session on 12 May has started with the arrival of the ceremonial mace, a 1.7 ornamental silver staff representing the British monarch's authority over the parliament, which is now rested on a table between the government and the opposition. Despite the heat outside, the debate was presided over by the speaker dressed in ceremonial robe, which are the opposition spokesperson for culture, creative industries, and information, approached the microphone and began to speak. Madam Speaker, may I get this afternoon if you make me first sectorial speech, pan me portfolio. And the speaker immediately cut her off. And Juliet Hones is also the wife of the Jamaican Prime Minister, Andrew Hones. Immediately cut her off. Hold on. Standing orders, I think you are fully aware, said Miss Hones, who is the wife of the Jamaican Prime Minister. The regulation to which Hones referred to was the rule that only English, and certainly not Jamaican Patois, is allowed in Parliament. If I have to stop you again during your presentation, you will not get any additional time, Hones told Butcher, as Parliament erupted into protest with someone chiding broken English. Yes. Without speaking in broken English, please, could you explain why?
Without speaking in broken English.
Yes, please.
Okay.
In the King's English, could you explain to me as well?
Not a crease. That is what I would say. And if you speak pidgin English, you would know what I said. Now, serious crease, now not a crease. Okay. I actually went back and watched the
speech.
The whole speech.
Yeah.
First of all, I just love the personality of this MP because she knew what was going to happen. She planned ahead. You could see like as soon as she was interrupted,
there was a wink in her face.
You could see the smirk on her face. There was a glint in her eye. She knew this was going to happen, and they played right into her hands because now this is a conversation not just happening in Jamaica, but happening across the world.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go back to the very beginning here, because what we're seeing here is how colonialism continues to dictate how we show up and how we're even fighting back. Understand that when the European colonizers, when Urugu arrived in Africa, when they started to kidnap and transport our bodies, transport us to the Caribbean, they understood something, that language is not merely communication. Language is consciousness. Language is identity. Language is power. So why do you think that they would have enslaved Africans in the Americas, forbidding to speak their mother tongue? Some of us, whether it was fictitious or not, will remember Roots. I remember how they cut this man's foot off because he wouldn't answer to Toby and he kept running away. He's like, no, my name is Kunta Kinte because the name has power.
Yeah.
Like all my children it was by choice, it was intentional, have names that are in African languages and that they have meaning. So every time you're calling them that name, you're actually speaking a particular life into them. So what we see happening here is what the colonizers did when they were in direct rule. Going to school in Nigeria until I went to FGC Enugu, where we now had to take some Nigerian languages as some of our coursework, we were actually forbidden to speak what they called vernacular. Chinua Achebe writes about this. Most people who were educated by the missionaries and those initial schools, that you could not speak, quote unquote, your mother tongue. You had to get proficient at theirs.
Yes.
And then, of course, you see it across the Americas, wherever we are in the diaspora. This, to speak our language is to present as less intelligent. Yep. It's very threatening to them because of the cohesion when we come together culturally. And so for us to be talking about in 2026, Jamaica, with its history of maroonage, right?
Maroonage.
With I just got done reading the Counter-Revolution of 1776 because I'm going to be interviewing Professor Gerald Horn for Rethinking Freedom tomorrow. And when you see the numbers of revolts on that quote-unquote island of Jamaica,
alone,
and then to turn around now, first of all, the fact that Jamaica has not, do you know, the only thing that is stopping Jamaica from becoming a republic is what?
Nothing,
the actual Jamaicans.
Themselves, nothing. Yeah.
If you have two parties who say, yes, we should become a republic, we should break off from Britain, but at the same time, because they're opposing themselves, they will not come in agreement on this one issue. So they start every parliament. You talked about the mace. No. Not just that. They say a prayer for the King of England.
Yes, King Charles III.
May he be protected. May he prosper. Are you freaking kidding me? It is 2026. So I'm so glad this sister, knowing what the results would be, decided to speak in Patois and has made you can go to her YouTube channel. She explains in more detail why it is so important that she's not saying don't stop speaking in English. She said at the very least, let it be bilingual. But to say that the language most people understand is not one in which the business of their government
parliament
can be conducted in, and you're still kissing the butt of the people who, by the way, just abstained from a vote on whether trafficking your bodies, murdering your ancestors is the gravest crime against humanity. And that's still who you're praying for? Like, what the hell is wrong with us? So, shout out to Nikisha Burchell. Sis.
When
power
I saw
to the people. Keep it
when
going.
When I saw this story, I immediately went back to our recent ancestor, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Yeah. So he wrote a series of books on the power of languages. Decolonizing the Mind is the most popular. One of his last books was Ngugi wa Thiong'o, The Language of Languages. But the most pertinent one to what we're discussing around is his last book, Decolonizing Languages. And he said something here which is very poignant and particular about this. He said something here which speaks to what transpired in that thing. He says, the assumption, where is it? He said, the assumption may explain why criminalizing African language continues to this day, now administered and enforced by African educationalists. We don't see the irony of what they are doing. An African punishing another African for speaking an African language by the order of an African government. So Miss Wholeness is essentially punishing a colleague that looks like her but speaking a language she clearly understands.
No, she is basically an overseer.
Yes.
She is in the place of Yurugu, of the colonizers, because now they don't have to be present for us to silence each other.
And who said a mind is a great thing to lose, because sometimes you don't
terrible thing to waste.
Exactly, because you don't have to be in the room. They will do it themselves. They will do it on your behalf, and which is what is clearly transparent here. And so that lends us to go to stay within the Caribbean.
No, but hold on. Before you get off of this, I just want us to even reclaim our language. It is not broken English.
Oh, okay.
It is a Creole language that emerged from the interactions between West Africans and Europeans. If you're going to call what we're speaking pidgin, whatever, then think of the English language itself. What language is that?
It's a mishmash.
Is it not borrowed from so many other languages and then twisted? Come on.
It's a mishmash of languages.
So
French.
if that is quote unquote a legitimate language, then whether I'm speaking so-called Ebonics, I'm speaking Pidgin English, I'm speaking Patois, whatever I'm speaking, it's a language as well that deserves all the respect of any other language.
And
to say don't speak that, it's like you're saying that the attempt to remain African while surviving slavery was a failure. And that the only good Negro is one who can speak exactly like their colonizer. There's so many levels to this thing.
Yeah.
But shout out to the sis, and let's continue this energy. And I have no doubts that now that she has brought it to the forefront in the way that she has, our conscious brothers and sisters
will take it up. We'll take the matter up.
Absolutely.
Fanon says it in his book, Black Skin, White Mask. You're not European. Why are you trying to speak like a Frenchman or an Englishman?
Well, did you see the one of the brother? Which country was it where he was saying we shouldn't speak Swahili?
That was the presidential aspirant in Uganda.
What an idiot! I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Actually,
I'm
not sorry. You talk like an idiot. You're an idiot.
We should speak English and French instead of Swahili. Yeah, like okay. Listen. On one final point with regards to the language thing. Languages are vessel of our history. The moment you lose your language, how do you transmit your memory to the next person? Because you now have to think in somebody else's language.
It's a vessel for your culture. It actually impairs your ability to problem solve, to solve your own problems from a lens that is uniquely grounded in your own ways of knowing, your own culture. Yes.
So kudos to the sister, Ms. Buchel.
Go follow her.
Go follow her, please. Go follow her.
I would love to meet her in person. She's astute. She's historically grounded. She's connected to the people. She knows the politics. I love that glint in her eye. Absolutely. Just wonderful.
She was up to mischief the moment she started speaking Patois.
You could just see it.
You could see it. It was like,
oh, I knew you were going to stop me.
Yeah. So that said, we stay in the Caribbean. And for that, we go to...
where is Comrade? I really wish he could come back.
He's trying. He said he hopes his stuff is not being bugged. Because he's been trying multiple times.
And the CIA and the FBI and all the alphabets.
Yeah. So our next story comes from RFI, Radio France International. And it's that France finally recognizes its role in pesticide harm across Caribbean islands. France Parliament has unanimously acknowledged the state's role in a pesticide scandal that contaminated most people in Guadeloupe and Martinique and has been linked to cancer and other health problems. The vote marks a significant moment in a decades-long fight over CHLORDECONE, a toxic chemical that continues to be used in the French Caribbean after it was banned in mainland France. The lower house of parliament voted in favor of a bill saying the state acknowledges its share of responsibility for the health-related moral, environmental, and economic harm suffered by Guadeloupe, Martinique, and their population. The Senate has also already approved the measure. CHLORDECONE, also known as capon, was used in banana plantations on the two islands from 1972 to 1993 to combat weevil. France banned it on the mainland in 1990, but continued to allow its use in Guadeloupe and Martinique for another 3 years, despite warning about its dangers. More than 90% of the adults on the two islands have been contaminated. My God. Your thoughts? Yes.
Again, we continue with the fact that we are still colonized people. The impact of colonialism, we see it every single week that we discuss any of these stories.
Yeah.
So let's go back to what they said here. More than 90% of adults.
Yeah.
90% of adults
of the two
on
islands.
both islands have been contaminated.
Can you imagine that?
Linking it to prostate cancer, damage to the nervous and hormonal systems, and reproductive harm.
Yeah.
Well, if 90% of the adults have been contaminated, and this contamination is going through the sperm, going through the egg, what do you think is the outcome for 100% of the kids?
Deformities.
And how does that affect their development when you're talking about damage to the nervous and hormonal systems? Listen, I want us to be very clear. When someone like a Roland Martin, who some of you may know, talks about fear of a black nation or white rage and so on and so forth.
White fear.
Or white fear. You know, it's like we hear it and then it just becomes like commonplace. But what you see if you're paying attention historically is people who are deeply rooted in insecurity, who actually know us in their minds to have something that they don't, and who do everything in their power to limit us.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that in America, when you talk about the browning of America, now you see all this, no, well, not now, but I mean, 2020, the same organizations that were like, yeah, we're pro-DEI and George Floyd and all of that, boom, flipped within 4 years. Complete opposite, right? You see the immigration policies to make sure that not only do we keep out as many black and brown people, we kick out as many more as we can, while we're imprisoning as many as we can of the Africans, you people of African descent who quote unquote are allowed to be here. But no, we're even going to find a way to denaturalize people. I mean, there's so much that is going on. And you got to tie it back to this fear of black people. And so the more we even hear stories about the future of the world is Africa. By 2050, 1 in every 4 human beings is going to be African. Do you think that there are not some people who are sitting back and saying, oh, we can't let that happen?
Yeah.
So whether it's getting your health data so we can figure out how to better poison you all, whether it is banning a product that you know kills people in your own country, calling the people of Martinique French citizens, but not
looking out for their welfare.
Looking out for their well-being in the same way that you looked out for the white French citizens. Whether you look at mining and the death and all the ways that we are being poisoned right now, we need to wake up. So let's get back to this place. They said, for those of us who remember anything from chemistry class, and if you remember half-lives, they said for this poison, CHLORDECONE, let me read it. It says it has a half-life of up to 400 years. Half-life, 400 years. So how many generations are we talking about?
It's in the soil.
This thing is no longer. And then it gets better. Is there a criminal investigation? No. Because too much time has passed to secure convictions. Wait a second. Didn't they still just put some Nazi on trial for killing Jews?
Yeah.
But too many years have passed for them to investigate. Now, okay, I'm going to try and make this really quick, but it's tying all of this together. As they're writing this, they never talk about the fact that Guadeloupe and Martinique, that they describe as Caribbean islands and French Caribbean territories, are actually French overseas departments. They are colonies.
They used to be part of the plantation colony.
They are not talking about, yes, that the banana plantation were owned by these Urugu white French men and women. They're not talking about the fact that there still remains direct descendants of those slaveholders who used African slaves to grow those bananas that they made so much money from. They're called beke, which I thought was really funny because in Igbo language, when you say, oh, my beke, it's beke is white people. So I don't know if there's a connection here in who named them beke. If it was the Africans who named them beke, there's probably a linguistic connection. See why we need to speak our languages? But anyway, these plantation families, who are the direct descendants of the slaveholders, continue to control that land. And they are the ones who continued to use that chemicals. Poison, which they never touched because their workers use it. And their economic interests were being protected by France, which is why they banned it in France, but not in these places that are technically still colonies.
Colonies, yeah.
So now what do? They're talking about, they should stop growing through hydroponics, rooftop planting. Come on now. How feasible is that for the vast majority of people in a poor area? Where am I getting the rooftop to start farming on the rooftop? And so I'm not even hearing where they're going to take any aggressive measures to figure out scientifically if there's a way to address the contamination of the soil and the water. This story, but I'm saying all of this to say, don't read any of these things in isolation. You need to make these connections. And their playbook is the same. They want to annihilate us. I don't care what you don't have to agree with me. You look at all of the policies towards Africa, they want to annihilate us, and you're not going to be exempt.
And also, you can also tie it to the idea of capital. You have to protect capital at all points. If you've banned something in France for 3 years and only allow it to come into effect 3 years later, you're not looking out for the people. You're looking out for capital because obviously you can't allow them to lose money. And now the leeway of compensation for it's not even being spoken about in the article, as you can see.
Oh no, there's no compensation. You deal with it, and there's no you're going to get free health care. There's no we're going to do any of these screenings. There's nothing.
It's an acknowledgement we've done you harm, and that's enough. So take it from there if you want to, but you're not going to get anything else from the state. And so with that, we've come to the midway point. If you're finding value, do consider liking, share, subscribe, join the community, and do all the good stuff. In the course of the week, Sister and I also do Women and Resistance, and we'll be talking about the life and time of Mary Fields. So join us for that. And Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Mary Fields on Women and Resistance.
You know, someone in the chat is saying if this information is so clear, why do we still receive from them? Because it is not so clear. Because so many of us are miseducated and disinformed, and so many of us are so caught up in this distraction, you know, whether it's now UFC. Imagine the nonsense that they're going to be doing in front of their White House, or, you know, the games, or, you know, housewives of, or hip hop or blubber and something and everything. But everything that distracts us from having knowledge and then being able to connect the dots.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, if this is so clear, why do we still receive from them? Why? What is why? Is that the headline, or was he referring to? What's the person referring?
Just in terms of the conversations, I'm going to assume in terms of the conversations that we're having and why we are still accepting from them. Because, I mean, even now, there are African farmers who are being sold, this seed is so great from here, and this fertilizer is so wonderful from here, and we don't even know what it is that they're doing to us.
I mean, you also can read into it. The reason why we do this is we also need a level of media education, which is the headlines can be misleading. Even if you read the entire body of the column, the historical context is often missing. Like the sister explained earlier, they're not going to tell us that this Guadeloupe and Martinique used to be plantations. We used to be French plantations. And the people who were there were previously enslaved. So for them, this is a continuum of what transpired before. If you can afford to poison the people and let them get away with it, this is what we're looking at. And so given that kind of lens is the reason why African News Review exist. So that said,
I know you got to get to the next story. Yeah. I know. Back to that Jamaican story, just to put it's not a cherry on the top. It's actually to scatter the cake altogether. Again, if you understand pidgin English, you understand. Let's just scatter it all. Can you imagine that same parliament that prays to the king has now asked the king to, and I think they covered it in the article a little bit, but we didn't touch on it, has now asked the king to get the Privy Council to determine whether the enslavement of Africans was a crime. So you are asking the descendants of the people who kidnapped and enslaved and murdered your people to please tell you, please, sir, do you think that when you people stole us and used us to build your wealth and all those crowns and jewels in your mother's crown and all, do you think that was a crime against us? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. And I could readily give them the answer. The answer is in Michael Taylor's book, The Interest, where the British Parliament basically compensated the enslavers, to the tune of 40% of the national budget at the time.
Wait a second. Aren't they still paying that? I don't have.
No. They finished paying.
They're done now?
Yeah,
no, but that was very recently.
Yeah, 2005, yes, was the last payment, yes. Yeah, 2015. I
was going to say, I think it was more recent.
Yeah, 2015.
They just finished paying back. So when people say, I don't own any slaves, I don't have any responsibility, but the descendants of those enslavers were still collecting their reparations
up till
off of the body and the blood and the sweat and the tears of your family members that has already enriched them.
Yeah.
And now you're asking them, do you think it was a crime what you did to us? When you have the power to be your own republic?
But here's the kicker. Here's even the kicker to that. When they pose that question to the king, right? They pose the question to the king that should he consider. The royal house got compensation for its losing its enslaved persons. The Church of England did. The clergy, those involved within the church, people in the House of Parliament, and also business people. So I don't know who the Jamaican Parliament are writing to with the hope that they're going to get some sort of recompense. So I know that's not going to happen. So we can stop dreaming.
Okay, so just really quickly, the British government made the final payments to settle the loan it took out to compensate former slaveholders in 2015.
2015.
When slavery was abolished in the British Empire in 1833, the government borrowed 20 million, around 40% of the national budget, 20 million pounds, to compensate plantation owners for the loss of their property.
Yep.
The original compensation claims were processed and paid out to enslavers between 1835 and 1843, largely under the Slave Compensation Act 1837. However, the debt was financed through government bonds, specifically undated gilts, that were so vast that they were only finally paid off by the UK taxpayers 182 years later in 2015.
I mean, what else can you say to that? What else can you say to that? That is the British state for you. So good luck with getting compensation from them. You You can't king and country, indeed. Yeah, king and country. That's it. Let's go to our next story, which is from one island to another major island. We go to the eastern border of Africa, Madagascar. And it is that the race, and this news comes from Financial Times, it's that the race for rare earths sparks concern about environmental damage. Companies seeking to boost Western supply face legal and community obstacles. More than 6,000 people living near a mine in Madagascar are locked in a dispute with Rio Tinto. Rio Tinto is the huge Australian mining firm over alleged environmental damage linked to the extraction of rare earth minerals, key to modern industry. They've accused the mining group subsidiary QIT, Madagascar's military minerals, of contaminating waterways with hazardous materials, including uranium, through the extraction of ilmenite used in paints and the rare earth mineral moissanite, which contains the radioactive elements. There is so much dirt, said Claudine, a farmer in his 30s who did not want to give his full name. Don, a fisherman, said fish numbers in local river have fallen significantly. It is killing our children and killing everything around the mine, he told Financial Times. The long-running dispute highlights the legal and moral risk facing companies as they intensify efforts to open rare earth mines, a push that has led to the rush of deals as the West continues to seek to loosen China's grip on the sector. So, this is not the first story we've done with regards to them. From one contamination story to another, one part of the world to another, what do they have in common? Black people. So, sister, what do you think?
Can you go back and read the part of how they framed the issue?
Okay, the framing. The long-running dispute highlights the legal and moral risk facing companies as they intensify efforts to open rare earth mines, a push that has led to a rush of deals as the West seeks to loosen China's grip on the sector. So, because China is doing this, it's okay if we kill off a couple of people.
Okay, and one of the things that I was researching is that there are actually safer ways that you can access these rare minerals. There's so many ways to address this issue.
How would you want to do that?
But of course, the safer way is not, the Brazilians are actually using it. It's called, what's it called? The Brazilian survey method, I believe, where you're not leaching the soil in the same way.
Okay.
But of course, that cuts into your profits. And so capitalism, by all means, whether we're talking about the enslavement of bodies or whether now we're talking about still the enslavement of our bodies in the ways that money is being extracted here. So what we see happening in this Anosi region of Madagascar, not the movie Madagascar, is really a continuation of a 500-year pattern, at least.
Yeah.
The names change. The minerals we're talking about, the resources we're talking about might change. But the corporations might even change. But the structure stays identical. We strip your items. There's zero wealth transfer to the African people. And we don't care what impact we're having on the people. And we can take just about any part of Africa right now. I'm sorry to say, but it's the truth. And you will hear these stories. My parents happen to be visiting me right now. Now I was just having a conversation with my mother because we are right off of the Atlantic Ocean. We're in river states where there's a lot of oil, the oil industry, Shell and all of that. And for years, we talked about the pollution of the area. And so now people are talking about, we don't even see the fish, the variety of fish that existed 10, 15, 20 years ago. And then now we don't even see the quantities of the fish that we can even access.
Yeah.
Now there are a lot of reasons to this, but pollution is is right in the middle of all of that. And African countries that do not hold these corporations to any standards whatsoever.
Yeah.
They can spill, they can pollute, they can extract, not build schools, no
Hospitals.
no infrastructure. You can imagine oil being pumped out of your land, but you have no electricity. But you have all of the residue and you have all of the contaminants.
Huh.
And so this story highlights something that is taking place across
The continent.
the continent
And over time.
and wherever you find Black people, quite frankly. And so whether it's a colonial entity, whether it's whoever they now have sold their rights to, whether it's the US, China, whatever, Africans need to come together to figure out how we are going to fight this. And that is my major concern, is that where's the sovereignty? Where's the consent? Where are we having meaningful discussions where we're bringing our own scientists and you're not just listening to whatever they're telling you, and you're saying, oh, I hope this, it works out. So the history of African mining contracts tell us that those negotiations are never in the interest of the local people. And that has to change. Now, something else that I see sometimes they'll do is they'll have representatives from these organizations come to speak to, quote unquote, the local people. But it's like when we signed those treaties, we don't even know what the hell they're talking about because you don't have the expertise in the room. What the article never asked is what percentage of Rio Tinto's profits from Madagascar flow back into the Malagasy schools or their hospitals or their infrastructure. And then this whole article, I know there's only so much they can do, but where's the African Union? Like, who's fighting for the Africans?
Good question.
And then when they're talking about, the article said that radioactive waste has been linked to increasing cases of cancer and other health problems. And then says regulators are under-equipped. And then it moves on. So
the fallout of that was?
Yeah. So how do we change the regulation? And let me tell you, the people who are trying to kill you are never going to set this up. So this is up to us. So every time we do these stories, I'm just thinking, we need to be exposing our young people like, hey, go get that degree in chemistry. You go get this. And then we need to help plug them into organizations that will allow them to do meaningful work. Not just, I got a job. But how are we transforming this education to actually making a difference for ourselves? And to do that, we've got to get some of these African elites out of here because they simply don't care, are too egotistical. If you watch Women in Resistance last week when we talked about Elizabeth Toro, and in her book, she goes through what Idi Amin had set up. And you can see that playing out in so many ways, by the way, here in the United States of America, where you just hire people who are loyal to you, but don't have an inkling about the work they're supposed to do. And that ends up being to the detriment of the regular people.
I mean, one final point on this story would be the series of cases that have happened with regards to mining in, not just mining, also when, quote unquote, the imperialists come in and they do all sorts of shenanigans on the continent. It would be the DRC Congo cobalt issue where they're fighting over the place, but regardless, cobalt still gets out. People are displaced and what have you. You talked about Shell, in the course of which we lost Ken Saro-Wiwa when he and the Ogoni 6?
Mm-hmm.
8. Is it 8 or 6? Keep forgetting.
8, I believe.
Yeah, Ogoni 8. They were executed in November in the 90s. 1996?
No, I wrote an article on it. No, it was early. I wrote an article on it, I think in 1993 for the college.
Was it 93 or 96?
Well, the college paper, I've got to look it up. But yes, these fights have been going on ongoing.
So this is cases where people have stood up and decided, you know what, we're going to go toe-to-toe with these multinationals. Eventually...
Yeah, he was executed in 1995.
1995, okay.
Yeah.
So eventually they go toe-to-toe with the...
They'll go 9.
Yeah,
him
they'll go 9.
plus 8 more, yes.
Plus 8 more, yeah. So they go toe-to-toe with the multinationals. The multinationals will deny. Eventually they'll pay compensation because profit trumps everything. What's the cost? What are we going to pay them? Pittance. But all these people are asking is, clean up after yourselves. That's all. They're not saying don't do business. Just clean up after yourself. One other one is...
We have to do more than that. Again, understand that to the extent that America is calling itself a world power, to the extent that Europe became this industrialized area and all of that, was because they had our resources and they had our bodies. Go and read everything that they have that allowed them to industrialize and to grow and acquire all this wealth, and now America has all this money for weapons and all of that, was built off of the bodies and the blood of Black people.
Yes.
The question, and we have hardly anything to show for it. The question is, now Africa's minerals are going to power
the next
all the 21st century vehicles, their wind turbines, defense systems, the phones, all of that, all the technology is being powered from our resources. Are we going to benefit from it? Or again, are we going to be the fodder, the fertilizer for other people's quote unquote advancement?
Yeah.
While we are further marginalized. We have to make that decision. Nobody's looking out for us. And we shouldn't really, because they've proven they have no humanity, we shouldn't even expect that. So many of us expending so much energy on, let me get them to like me or to know me or to listen, go read the history. But what will happen to us in the next 10, 15, 20 years is dependent and beyond is dependent on the decisions that we're making now and how we fight back.
Speaking of fighting back, a group of people have been fighting back in Algeria since 1960 up till today with regards to the nuclear testing in the Algerian desert. I mean, they're still talking compensation even to today, 2026. Can you think? Now, the story we've just run now, the mining started a couple of years ago. The fallout is God knows when they will see compensation. No talk of the one that happened in Martinique. That said, we nearly come to the end. We'll go to our last story, which comes from The Guardian. And we're going to your favorite part of the world, Kenya. And it's this one is actually very funny. We don't have another country to run, says Kenya. Kenya flares U.S. plan for Ebola quarantine site. People from the town of a potential site or U.S. citizens exposed to Ebola says it put them at risk in a country with no known cases. And the story reads, people from a town in central Kenya, where the U.S. wants to set up an Ebola quarantine facility for its citizens, have strongly criticized the plan, saying it fears it will expose them to the virus, which is indicative of double standards on the part of the U.S. Everyone should be quarantined in their home country. We shouldn't allow foreigners to bring us diseases, said Charles Matenge, a taxi driver who lives near Laikipia Air Base, the proposed site in Nanyuki, 120 miles from the capital, Nairobi. Kenya is our country and we should be careful with it. And where is it? The U.S. plans to send 30 medical personnel to staff the Nanyuki facility, which, if completed, will have 50 beds. In previous Ebola outbreaks, the U.S. has returned affected countries home for medical treatment. And the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said on May 28th, the U.S. must keep potential Ebola patients out of the country. We cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola to enter the United States, he said at the cabinet meeting. Last month, an American doctor who contracted the Ebola in the DRC was flown to Germany for care with his wife and 4 children. So, sounds like a very good plan. What's the point? I don't see any problem.
So, first question I will ask right now is, President Ruto, I mean, it's one after the other after the other. He's the one who committed Kenyan troops to go to Haiti. He's the one signing memorandum of understanding for health that his country is not even aware of, is not in agreement with.
Yeah.
He's the one accepting deportees from the United States, right? Ghana did that as well.
Yeah.
So Ruto defends the plan, but gives no account of how, when, or under what conditions this agreement was reached.
Is that necessary?
Was this a side agreement to some other negotiation? What did Kenya receive in exchange for becoming America's Ebola buffer zone? Your people are saying, we don't have Ebola here. Rubio, rightfully so, is looking out for his country and says, under no circumstances are we going to let someone with Ebola come into the U.S. And then you, a sovereign nation, say, sir, massa, I want to protect your people too. We don't have it here. But yes, we already gave you land for your base in our country.
Yeah, you can come here.
And now you are going to be allowed to create an Ebola treatment center that, oh, wait a second, is only open to American citizens.
Yeah, 50 beds.
On our land. Tell me, will those people just like drop from the sky? Will they not travel somehow to get to that location? Will it be the 30 people the U.S. is sending that will be the drivers, that will be the janitors, that would be the cooks, please tell me how you are going to insulate the entire Kenyan population from Ebola. And oh, by the way, if they contracted, they can't be treated at that center because it's just for Americans, the superior citizen, the superior people in the world, except like Americans, be very careful because you might have to prove your papers. And if you're like Obama, you probably will not be allowed in there. It's absolutely ridiculous. So again, you see the colonialism because here you have a supposed sovereign nation supposedly in conversation with another sovereign nation, and you completely kowtow to their
interest
needs. And this location that they chose, it's right next to a base where there's a British Army training unit. Yeah. Remember, we've had multiple conversations about what these British are doing. And the fact that when they commit crimes in Kenya,
you can try them.
You cannot try them in Kenya. They get to go back home, and then you see if you can work it out with their home country for them to be prosecuted in any way. This is absolute madness. On this one, shame on you, Ruto, and thank you to all of those who are putting their lives on the line and protesting. Because if they hadn't, this place would already have opened without anyone knowing about it.
Yeah. Because clearly he doesn't. I mean, the fact that he is in agreement and has not even raised one objection to it suggests he probably told him beforehand that you're getting a clinic and there is nothing you can do about it, and probably just said yes sir. Because
now, did you see in the article where it used this particular phrase, containment colony?
Yeah, this is not the first time they've done it.
You are going to take a whole nation. And that nation's president agrees with you for his country to become a container colony.
Yeah. So, again, what can I say? Sometimes we think we have leaders, but instead what we have are puppets. And in this case, this puppet, I mean, it's one thing to be amenable to Western interests. But
meanwhile, I haven't heard Rubio say we're sending resources to the DRC.
No, why would they do that? We
are putting our full efforts behind trying to contain and heal people. I haven't heard that.
They pulled out, I mean, Rubio's government, Trump's government, has pulled out of the World Trade Health Organization. They've also canceled their USAID program. And
Ruto actually had the nerve to say that this colony that they're creating, said the American Ebola quarantine facility is a part of national health preparedness.
Abroad. Somebody else's country.
Bruh, what are you smoking? It doesn't even make sense. Like, this is why critical thinking is so important. Like, whose national health preparedness? For you? How does this benefit Kenya?
Who cares about what benefits Kenya? We're talking about America first. We're talking about an American first mindset. Kenyans are just simply cannot afford it. If they get in the way and they're lucky enough to benefit, fine. But the main idea is not we're doing it because of them. We've already told.
Remember with COVID, how there was this rush to let's get all the scientists we can working on this so we can get a vaccine as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And here you have a strain that has what, a 50% mortality rate is what I understand?
Correct.
Right? 30 to 50%. And you are basically saying, you've said nothing about how we are employing scientists to get a vaccine to this Bundibugyo strain of Ebola. There's been no conversation about that at all.
And it's not as if you don't have the expertise. You do. You have the expertise, you have the material resources. But again, like you said, Africa is going to be the future in 2050. We can't possibly allow that to happen. So anything that we can do to slow down that growth, impede such progress, let's do it. This poison, mine, displace people, Sudan, engineer mass casualties, elections, Uganda. I mean, chase people away from countries, South Africa. We'll do anything. As long as you guys cannot get to settle and think straight. We'll do anything. So, yeah, that said.
So I know we're over our time, but there is a question in here. I don't know if you want to take a stab at it.
What's the question?
It says, it just seems we can't get away from this colonial mindset with a materialist heart. Why can't we get this right?
Okay, quick one would be pretty straightforward. If you look at all the ex-colonies, and I'm not saying just the ones on Africa, even in the Caribbean, look and tell me which one revamped their educational system. I'll wait. None of them did. They inherited the educational system and kept it, oiled the machine and kept it going. In fact, now, what they've even done now is they've added a private component to it. You've got the British International School, you've got the chartered school where they're paying in dollars. I'm talking about Nigeria now. If you look in the Caribbean countries and French-speaking ones, you will find a similar type setup there. So until we capture the educational system, everything we do thereafter is basically just catching up. We're just catching up. And the more ingrained they are, the more neocolonial the country is. Classic case is Kenya. Kenya is one of the most, when I talk about the elite, I mean, the youths now are coming to terms with it. But in terms of the elites, Kenya is the classic case of a neocolonial country. It does everything and anything anybody with a pale face comes to tell them to do. They just do it. There is no critical thinking, nothing. So, yeah. I was in Nairobi right before the election. Everything I heard from people, Ruto was about the people. Ruto was never been about the people. He's been, his classic refrain he's a hustler. Read into that what it means. He's a hustler. So, Ruto is not pro people. So, that said.
So why do the people then, when they had a choice between Ruto and Odinga, how did they arrive at Ruto?
Because Odinga had always been a socialist. And you and I know that word has been, has been inflamed to mean a socialist. Is going to upset the apple cart, is going to destroy what capitalism has built. But then again, you see the same thing in the United States. Somehow we just get people to vote against their own very best interest. And they do it time and time again.
And therein comes in, how you market. So when you said he called himself hustler in chief, one of his claims to fame was, hey, I used to be a rural chicken seller. And then I worked myself up. So I am for the
bootstraps, yeah.
I am for the people. But then you saw how he served as deputy president under Kenyatta. Mm-hmm. Kenyatta then broke off from him and actually supported Odinga for a reason. You got to have that critical thinking to figure out what is the purpose here. but he adequately sold himself as, I am the man of the people. I'm doing economics from the bottom up, all of that. Okay, now that you have seen who he is, what are you going to do differently?
And another thing is also, it's difficult to get, the power of incumbency in Africa is difficult to overcome. Once you're in power, you know the people to speak to on the other side. You can
Same
see
here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Same here.
So the moment you are in power, you can start speaking to, quote unquote, the imperialist powers. They know you, so you become a trusted voice. And so all they need to do is just get the power of the media behind you, and they will just project you. They will deny the opposition that right of reply, if anything comes. And they will paint you in such a way that you become the poster child of what it is that is, quote unquote, Western in the eyes of the world. And before you know it, you're in power, you're doing their bidding, which is clearly doing that. And if he doesn't run a second time, there's already someone who is going to take up this very mantle and do the same thing. Just look across the continent. You will always find a useful idiot. So hopefully the people at some point decide to do what is necessary, as Aikuyama would say. So that's it. Sister, any final thoughts?
Sounding like a broken record at this time, but, thank you for always doing the research to bring these stories, to create this platform for us to have this conversation. I know that I learned so much just in going back, reading these articles, connecting some of the dots, the little dots that I know. That's always why I want to hear from Comrade as well, because I learned so much more from him, and I'm sure that the viewers and listeners are learning as much as well. The next part for me is, okay, now how do we implement this knowledge? What are we going to do different? That's really important. But thank you for the work that you keep doing.
No, I'm humbled.
And for all those watching, thank you.
Get to sit in every week and, listen to alternative points of view. And also that means do much more reading, because you can't stop reading. Reading is the act of journaling.
You've got to see my desk now. I have 5 different reading glasses.
I have a pair.
It's a lot.
Yeah. I have a pair of glasses around me so that there is one constantly.
My mother's like, "What are you doing selling glasses?" I'm like, well, because if I can't find one, I got the other.
You have to, because if you lose one, then you're basically blind for a while. So that said, we'll thank everyone in the audience, typing in chats and, keeping us on our toes week in, week out. We continue to serve. And that said, in the course of the week, Wednesday, to be precise, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Women in Resistance, Sister would tell us what it is to walk in the shoes of Mary Fields. That said, thank you for coming through. Until next week, it's good night and God bless. That's a wrap for this week on the African News Review Podcast. We hope you are leaving with a clearer, more truthful picture of Africa. Remember, every story has another side, and we're here to uncover it. Don't forget to join us next Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we continue to challenge the narratives and reclaim Africa's voice. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeing Africa for what it truly is.